And now for a session produced by our underwriter, please welcome John Campbell, Head of Corporate Responsibility at Wells Fargo, and Judi Kende, Vice President and New York Market Leader of Enterprise Community Partners.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Well, it's fun to be back. I was here last year, and we had a great time, so thanks for letting us come back. And I'm here with Judi Kende. Judi's with Enterprise. And as you probably know, Enterprise is an expert in the housing space and is one of our partners. So we wanted to change it up a little bit this morning. We haven't talked about affordable housing yet today, so we thought we would do that. Before I do that, a lot's changed at Wells Fargo over the last couple of years. We've been in the headlines plenty of times, and there's always an advantage to that. That means you get a chance to look at everything you do and reconsider it, and I can tell you that's certainly what's been going on. But one of the things we know is that neighborhoods all across the country are facing many challenges. And right here in New York, we know that for certain. And we also know that the gaps between race and income, whether it be with education or housing, is continuing to grow. Employment would be another place where that gap is really continuing to grow. And so as Wells Fargo looks at things where we actually think we can have scalable impact on solving problems, one of the places where we think we have that expertise is actually in housing, in particular how housing can help individuals move out of poverty. And so at Wells Fargo, I do have the luxury of being in charge of philanthropy. We're proud of the fact that we're a big giver. But I think the transition we're going through is moving from a good check writer to actually helping narrow our focus to something where we actually can help solve problems. And as I've already said, I think housing is one of those spaces. We know that it's nearly impossible for people to move out of poverty or to move into wealth building unless they can have a stable source of housing. Housing affects almost everything about a family's life, and so we need to have partners who we can scale with, and so Enterprise is certainly one of those. So let me turn to Judi and just tell us a little bit about Enterprise. One of the statistics that always excites me is Enterprise has helped build 529,000 affordable housing units in 30 years. So Judi, just tell us a little bit about how Enterprise helps in the revitalization of neighborhoods.
Sure. Thank you, John, and thanks to Atlantic for hosting us today. Thanks to all of you for coming. I think you really captured the essence of housing. When you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, housing is really shelter, food are at the base of it, and everything else builds off of that. And you can't have success in school, in work, in your health without that stable home. And so that's why Enterprise's mission is to make sure that every family, every person has a safe, quality home that's in a thriving community connected to opportunity. And we affect our mission in many of the ways that you've been talking about here today. So we were founded as a social enterprise. That's where our name came from. And even before social impact investing was really kind of quote unquote a thing, Enterprise was aggregating and investing capital to create and preserve affordable housing. And that's a really essential part of our model. We also create programmatic solutions to create solutions for the seemingly most intractable housing problems, be it homelessness to energy efficiency, resilience, sustainability. And then lastly, policy, and we believe that we need to scale the solutions that work, advocate for the resources that are needed to truly transform the system.
So we're lucky. We've worked on lots of different things over the years. We learn from each other. So I'm curious, from the nonprofit side, what model works best with big companies like Wells Fargo? Is there a model that you've seen that you think really makes a difference?
Well, I think that Wells Fargo is, and one of the things I was saying to John before we came on stage is it's very easy to talk about an organization that you partner with at every level. It's a very authentic conversation. And so with Wells Fargo, you've been a long-standing social impact investor with us through low-income housing tax credits, new market tax credits, loans, funds. So we've created and preserved innumerable units together. And then you've also had the vision to fund our policy, and I think that that's particularly unique, and it really shows how Wells Fargo's willing to go where few funders are thinking about if it truly is transformational. We don't have a lot of funders who come pounding on our door, unfortunately, for policy, but you funded our state and local policy. It's allowed us to expand from New York, which is the market I lead, to 11 other geographies, and led to housing trust funds in a number of states, to important policies that help seniors, that help homeless families. And so that is really vital to the work.
Great. Well, in fact, we had a call yesterday, and I think we both had the same reaction. We didn't even know how many things we did together. It was really fun. As we started to go through, we figured out that it was just countless sorts of things we do. So you were going to ask me a question, I think.
I was going to ask you a question. So one of the things that's really, you started with this question about how we work with a big organization, and I'm going to turn that on its head and ask you how you work with a big organization, because we're a national nonprofit. We have 1,200 people nationally, but then we also have local markets. I lead New York, and a lot of times foundations and philanthropic support struggles to figure out either they fund us at the local level or the national level, but you really recognize both the importance of funding the big umbrella as well as the boots on the ground.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's easy, and I wouldn't say it comes naturally, but we do have this. I wouldn't call it bifurcated. It's certainly aligned, but about half of our philanthropy is very, very local, in probably 60 markets across the country, and then the other half is more enterprise driven. And so actually figuring out how to align those local activities and kind of the national priorities is actually pretty tricky. And so one of the things I'm learning is that having relationships with people like Enterprise or LISC or Living Cities or Habitat, where their footprint is more like ours, is a real benefit, because then we can actually deliver in very local ways, like in Washington or New York or Denver, but at the same time it aligns with our broader perspectives. And I think it allows us to actually begin to move from, as I say, writing checks to actually solving problems, because we have partners that we get to know and we can go deeper with over time. So.
And one of the areas that we are both very focused on, I'm sure many people in this room and watching, is really the racial equity and the wealth gap, and that is particularly anchored in housing patterns. And so maybe it's something we can both talk a little bit about how we're approaching that.
Well, I agree. I think I mentioned at the onset that we see these gaps expanding, and I think collectively trying to figure out how to resolve them. I'll give you an example from last week where we hope we've made a difference. We made a pretty substantial commitment for us in Washington, D.C. last week, a program we kicked off called Where We Live. And it took us 6 months to build, with over 20 nonprofits in the district, and it's focused on two wards, Ward 7 and 8. For those of you who may know Washington, you probably know those wards are very low income and very unlike the other wards in the city. And it was a holistic solution that we put together with 20 nonprofits over 6 months. It's built on affordable housing, small business, and job readiness. And so I think that's an example of the kind of efforts we're trying to drive home, looking for where we can holistically try to help move people out of poverty. What about you?
Well, and one of the things that kind of building on the theme of Wells going where other funders won't go, or even doing things that take a critical look at their own organization, Wells funded us to bring an exhibit called Undesign the Red Line to a number of different cities that we work in. And that really is, we're seeking to look very deep at segregation and to reverse those effects, because we know it negatively impacts regions, the economy of regions, the people who live in the neighborhoods. It's really important to have educational tools, and so we've had this exhibit in a number of our offices. In New York, over 1,000 people came through our office. We're re-hosting it again at a symposium, and it is so fundamental to teaching people about policies and practices that led to these detrimental effects.
So thank you, everybody, for letting us come back. I hope you can hear that for us, we give away a lot of money. Next year, we'll give away probably $450 million. I think the trick for us is moving, as I've said before, how do we move from being a good check writer to actually moving into the space where we're actually helping to solve problems? I think it's going to require for us a few things. It's going to require a lot more collaboration with people like all of you. It's going to require greater focus as opposed to doing lots of things, but really focusing on a few things where we think not only our financial capability, but also our human expertise can make a difference. So thank you for letting us be here. Thank Atlantic, really thank our partners, Enterprise, and have a great rest of the day. Thanks very much.